Well, welcome everybody. I'm really excited to have with me today Neil Kanungo, data scientist. We've been collaborating around visual analytics for insight and action this year, and we're going to take it away. So, Neil, welcome.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for having me back, and it's always great to be part of TAF.
So, the standard disclaimer, and really, the idea of an insight is really a eureka moment. Eureka, discover gold kind of thing. So rapid insights from visual displays. This notion in Spotfire where we provide an overview, filter, mark, and zoom to an area of interest, and then bring up the details around that to spot the fire in the data. And the bit that's newish today is around how we then take action from that with integrated systems, with generative AI, and everything that at our fingertips to identify the insights and then take action. Now, the reason this is important, if we can compress, the time from when an event occurs to when the data is ready for analysis and completion of the analysis and taking the action, the business value generated does significantly increase. So with that as kind of the premise, let's get into some visual analytics for insight and action. So Spotfire was invented with a purpose to find insights and not just to draw pictures. That goes all the way back to the foundations of Spotfire, this idea of directly manipulating the data, queries and sliders, this idea of overview and then zoom and filter and details. And this was came out of the original founding of Spotfire at the Human Computer Interaction Lab at the University of Maryland under Ben Schneiderman's program. And you can see on the right there as we're flying through some World Bank type data on growth rates of urban areas. You can see the negative growth rates in pink there and the positive growth rates in blue for the different countries that are being navigated around through in different times. This is the idea of really zeroing in on where there's action. So Ben invented the tree map, and Neil, this is now available as a Spotfire mod.
That's correct. So that's a custom visualization based off of Ben's artwork as a tree map. This is a slice and dice tree map that's now made into a Spotfire mod that people can download and use as a custom visualization, their own analyses.
Yeah, and as it augments and extends the tree map inside of Spotfire that's native, and takes this into this sliding window and into a Merrimack plot and all kinds of things. So Neil, why don't you walk us through the unique capabilities of Spotfire and how we get to these types of insights?
Yeah, absolutely. I love Spotfire, and one of the top reasons is because of its immersive capabilities. Now, when you're doing analytics, you're not always going in a linear fashion from point A to point B. It can be iterative, it can be cyclic in that you're trying to visualize, explore, twist and turn and morph that data and visualize that again, ask different questions about your data. So you're able to do this in Spotfire with its brush linking capabilities, drill up, drill down, drill across, drill around your data. That's the interactivity that helps you find the needles in the haystack. But then you're able to also use the data canvas and the data wrangling capabilities to transform and enrich your data as you're asking questions about it. And those are directly represented in the Spotfire visualizations for your questions.
Now, I particularly like the way, Neil, that you can bring in and enrich the data with ad hoc data sets and do joins and reflect that very quickly in the visual analytics.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And there's also the smart and real-time capabilities. So Spotfire has the real-time capabilities of showing you second-by-second data that's not just a visual representation of it, but it's fully interactive and you can drill into that data. It's very unique to Spotfire. It also has the AI and machine learning capabilities where you're able to build machine learning data science applications for subject matter experts, build them application tools to solve difficult and complex problems. But you're also able to use the AI in Spotfire for generative AI. We're going to talk a little bit about Spotfire Copilot later in this presentation, and the AI recommendations in Spotfire.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're very early in this, way back to the human genome revolution when we created the interactive cluster analyses with dendrograms for genes and experiments, to be able to zoom into the effects of different compounds on different genomic pathways. So this has been in the products for a long, long time, and we've continued to add to it. And one area that I really like, Neil, in the machine learning side is the ability to add data functions for new methods as they come out of the Python community and add new visualizations through JavaScript add-ins as they come out of the visualization community.
Absolutely. So these are just downloadable from our community. You get these pre-packaged data functions in Python and R scripts where you can do geoanalytics, geospatial operations. You can do modeling. You can do machine learning, data transformations, data access. Just download them from the community. Also, you can download from the community the visualization mods. Just drag and drop them right into your Spotfire analysis. And there's a cloud deployment kit on GitHub for administrators for scaling that way. So the developers can create their own data functions and mods, and the business users can just use those easily from a quick drag and drop. So it's useful for everyone on the team.
So let's take a quick look at this. If we pull in from the flyout here, the FX flyout, these are the data functions. I'm going to drag in the NLP toolkit, which is available on the Spotfire community. I'm going to map the data to the technologies, components of whether I'm doing NER tagging or part of speech tagging, and then ultimately getting sentiment. These are Airbnb reviews from the Boston area displayed here on a map. And you can see how I'm bringing back the sentiment out of the review. I'm bringing back the listing of the review in the bottom right-hand corner, the text card mod and the word cloud mod. As I click around on these, I'm getting automatic linkage into the graphics analysis. And then under the hood, we're getting all the functionality, right, Neil?
Absolutely. So you're able to kind of reverse engineer that data function and see how it's parameterized with the data in the analysis. You can see the actual Python code here, or if it's R, you can see the R code. And this is automatically created for you. It's an automatic audit trail. And that's also available in the data transformation and data wrangling side, where you want to mix and match your data and do different data mashups and do that as you're developing the analysis. You can go back and forth very easily.
So all the way from the beginning of the analysis to the current state, this canvas is automatically created for you for your review or editing and so on. And the original, interactive user interface for this data function for the NLP toolkit is automatically generated. It looks at the parameters of the Python arguments of the code, and it automatically generates that interface. So this is available on the community site for you to go and download and use directly in your analysis. And Neil, in those mods we had there are just a sample of what we have available on the community.
Absolutely,
right?
yeah. There's 11 or 12 native Spotfire mod or Spotfire visualizations, and there's over 45 visualization mods. So you got about 60 or so visualizations available to you in Spotfire today, and that number just keeps growing. So you get donut charts, you get sunburst charts, you get candlestick charts, all kinds of things. Again, just drag and drop them right into Spotfire.
So one of my favorites, Neil, is this network chart mod, where this is data from the opioid epidemic. And you can see the network is representing all the way from the manufacturer of the compound or the drug to the prescriber, the insurance company, the end user, the prescription being filled at a certain pharmacy. You can see that whole network associated with the opioid epidemic. So what are some of your favorite mods, Neil?
Well, I think the network chart is a good horizontal mod in the sense that can be used in many industries, but there's also vertical mods, industry-specific mods like this vehicle loading mod. This is good for transportations and logistics. So in the center, you're seeing a truck and you're seeing the cargo on that truck that are out for deliveries. And so you're able to see the capacity of the truck, how the deliveries are being delivered. And to the left of that, you're seeing a stop time mod, which is kind of a bus itinerary where you're seeing if a delivery is early or if it's late, what its next delivery is, what its previous deliveries are. So these are very useful for specific industry experts, and they're more than just a bar chart or a sunburst chart. They're specific to industry problems.
Yeah, and totally linked into the rest of the analysis. So you see the brush linking there on the stop times to the trip and so on, just to behave like any other Spotfire visual. Another one that I really like, Neil, is the violin mod. And this is an extension on the usual box plot. So in the usual box plot there in the brown, you see the median white stripe, you see the interquartile range in the box, you see the whiskers going out to the outliers. So with the violin mod, we allow for multimodal distribution. So it's not just a Gaussian curve. You can see there's bimodal distributions on some of the categories here, and you can see how you can change and configure all of the features of the inbuilt box plot combined with the kernel smooth density on the empirical data for the different categories. And all of that's available through a point and click interface. So I can change the bandwidth of the smooth that's happening right now. I can add in the comparison circles, which do a statistical test between the different groups represented on the x-axis. I can see the significance of the test for that. So really a fascinating combination of functionality, statistical and visual capabilities. So for manufacturing, statistical process control, pharmaceutical, for healthcare outcomes, lots of use cases. When you want to look at empirical data without making assumptions, you want to look at the raw data and compare it. This is a great way to do that. Now, another example is the well log mod. So this is more for the energy sector. And now we want to look at data on the y-axis as being depth. So we're looking from the surface down as far as you want to go to do the drilling. We've got a lot of data, seismic data that we can represent on this. When you bounce the sound waves against the rock, you get back as a function of depth, porosity, permeability, different variables. In fact, in this version of the well log, we've got about 26 variables represented in different colors and different vertical columns. And you can slice across those 26 variables and with this horizontal shading here, and you can pull out data to help understand what's going to happen when you drill. So this second to the right column, the blue and the green one, you can see the green is the hydrocarbons, the blue is the water. So you can take a slice right above that and look at, what is the porosity, permeability characteristics of the rock there, so that you know what the rate of penetration is going to be for a certain drill bit. You can sort of predict the time it takes until you get to hydrocarbons. So the guys who are part of the rig can adjust their schedules knowing that they're going to, under certain drill bit assumptions, they're going to get to the hydrocarbons in a certain amount of time. They can manage their workload around that. So really useful mod for the energy sector for real-time drilling and production of oil and gas. So these great visuals, Neil, we've done a lot of work, as you mentioned, on the mods, but there's also some R&D work that's going on looking at extending D3 methods for creating new visual mods, right?
Right. So D3 is a good starting point for us when we're building mods. D3 is a JavaScript library that's built with a declarative syntax, and it's built on top of HTML, CSS, SVG. It has data binding characteristics in it where you can transform and manipulate your data, and it's got a rich community of developers. So on the next slide, we can see what some community-driven data visualizations are like. This is a bee swarm on the left. Top right is a steam graph, and below that you have a chord chart and an arc plot. So really rich visualizations that are both creative and impactful can be built from D3. And in addition to that, we have a Vega mod that is being developed, and the Vega is built on top of D3, and Vega Lite is built on top of Vega, and that has in it Vega algebra. So in the next slide, we see that there is layering, concatenation, faceting, and repeating, and that is how a Vega visualization is constructed. So an example of layering on the next slide is these layered chart examples. On the bottom left, you see that there's a bar chart and there's a line chart that are layered on top of each other. And that creates something similar to the combination chart you see in Spotfire. But on the top right, you're seeing a shaded region, and that could be a integration or a layering of the area chart and the line chart together. So layering is very powerful. Now with repeat and concatenation on the left, you're seeing repeated data that's used in each individual cell, and that can be created for something like a SPLOM mod. We do have a SPLOM mod, a scatter plot matrix mod available for you to download. And then there's a concatenation on the right where you see a binned heat map, and you see concatenated to that is a histogram. So this is taking multiple visualizations and gluing them together so the axes line up and giving you something unique. Now, faceting is the last part of the algebra, and that is faceting is like trellising. This is something Spotfire does natively, and this is taking a parameterized categorical value and parameterizing the data across each cell that way. So Vega mod is something that you're seeing here on the screen. This is using kernel density estimator on a scatter plot to draw contour plots. So you might be familiar with contour plots on map charts, but this is a contour plot on an actual scatter plot. And you have, as a developer, an option to expand this window where you can edit the actual declarative statements in your Vega mod. So in the next slide, you can see we check that 0 box, and that adds the 0 axis to there. Just a very simple example of how that adjusts the visualization.
And this is a developer trick. It's not an end user thing. It speeds up the development of the mod essentially.
Absolutely. So on the next slide, you'll see the ridgeline plot. And so an actual end user won't see that Vega declaration in there, but they might see something like this, which is trellis values for the frequency of individual restaurant types, different restaurant types in the University District of Seattle, Washington. And Michael, you like to call this the Joy plot, right?
Yeah, no, it harks back to my younger days when Joy Division was a big band, post-punk band. And their first album, Unknown Pleasures, had a graphic on the album cover that was very much like this, where someone was representing radio emissions from a pulsar star in different frequencies. So it's kind of fun to see the merging of that event back in the 80s with this visual display.
And this Vega mod just want to mention that was built in 15 minutes. So it doesn't have all the bells and whistles in 15 minutes, but it's a good starting point. So it's very quick to make new mods with the Vega template that's in R&D.
So Neil, we talked a bit about faceting, and Spotfire has a long history with the trellis plot, and we were very first to implement that in a visual interactive environment. So let's just walk through a few of the features of the inbuilt Spotfire trellis.
Yeah, so trellising is native in Spotfire. It's available in pretty much every visualization except for table visualizations. You see here we have COVID epidemic curves for the United States. It was shown for the whole United States, but I'm trellising here by individual states, and that automatically develops each individual cell. I can adjust the scale on the y-axis and adjust it for all visualizations, all of the cells. I don't have to individually go to visualization to adjust that scale. And I can add another categorical variable to trellis by. I can add many categorical variables to trellis by, and that creates a hierarchy here. And so I add a county, and the county is shown for the state and county, also individual trellised, and you can adjust the scale here as well for this hierarchical trellising.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out that we go all the way back to Bill Cleveland's book on visualizing data and his original implementation in S+, the trellis graphics. So really faithful to the beginnings of trellis and the impact of it. As you mentioned, you can have any graph on the X and Y axis, and you can trellis that by whatever categorical variable or combination of variables that you want. So very powerful. Also a bit of a tip of the lid to Ed Tufte here, his principle of small multiples. When you train somebody to read a certain graph, then just give them more graphs like that, because they already know how to interpret it. So give them a trellis display really hits that Tufte principle as well. And the way that we've implemented the trellis in Spotfire is pretty innovative. So for example, here we're looking at now a wafer map or a map chart, and we're highlighting a certain pattern from the composite set. And you can see how the trellis display, the drill down display, adjusts to the number of panels that it are required to represent the data. So the ring chart, the ring pattern has a more representation than the Pac-Man pattern. And as you're drilling around the different patterns and classifying the wafers into certain groups, the display automatically adjusts to the data, gives you a feel for the different patterns, their frequency, and how to classify the wafers. So Neil, let's bring it home and convert some of these insights to actions. We've seen a wide range of visual displays for identifying insights, and now we're going to turn them into actions. And I'd like to start here with the work that's going on with generative AI and the Spotfire Copilot. And I'm going to ask Spotfire a question, show me sales over time. So 5 words there. And really, the AI engine with Spotfire has interpreted sales total to be on the y-axis from sales in the question. And it's interpreted order date from the over time part of that question. It's binned the data by year and month. It's chosen the line plot to show the appropriate data, and it's given a thumbnail graphic response to the question, ready for you to point and click into your analysis. So I think that's pretty cool. 5 words to get all of that assistance from Spotfire. But let's take it to the next step, Neil. Tell me what else it can do.
Yeah, when you say show sales over time, it was powerful because it didn't use any specific column names in that prompt. It found sales total from sales. That's a little close, but it found order date from time, which is not close at all. It found a temporal column and a date column, and it correctly identified how to plot that. Now, you can get even more general with your questions and be even more natural with it, like, which is my highest selling product? And this found sales total. It basically interpreted selling to be sales total. And then product, it found product category 1, and it absolutely picked the right chart here. It picked a bar chart, it sorted it by value. You can easily see the ranking of the different products, and you can just click that button, create visualization, it'll add it to your analysis. So very natural questions are being interpreted by the AI engine and driving action from insight.
Yeah, terrific. Well, it's a great R&D project we have going on here, and we'll be making progress as fast as we can, keeping up with the technology evolution. So the other method we've been working on for taking actions is this Spotfire Cloud Actions. And in this case, we set up a low-code integration step, a pipeline that invokes certain actions that we want to take in Spotfire directly from inside of a Spotfire visual. So in this case, I've set up this integration flow that includes things like starting a Slack thread or sending someone an email or writing to a database. And then I also configure some business rules about when to do that. So what are the triggers that would result in that low-code integration flow being enacted on the data at hand inside of Spotfire? So that can be configured as well. And then finally, what that's going to look like, in this case, a Slack thread action. Start a Slack thread notifying a group of what's happening in the Spotfire analysis on the certain data that's being analyzed. And so from all of that setup, you can then quickly take an action inside of Spotfire. So Neil, let's go through a couple examples of that. Firstly, with respect to anomaly detection from sound waves coming off of equipment.
So we have sound waves coming off equipment, as you mentioned, and these are taken from images are taken from this in the Spotfire analysis, and then unsupervised learning techniques are used to then analyze this data and find anomalies. So this can be used with isolation forest, local outlier factor, autoencoders, all finding anomalies. And then this is managed by exception. Those specific anomalies are sent to field technicians. So this is integrated with a email client that can attach the image to an email and send it to your field tech. But there's over 200 different applications that can be integrated this way, just from a simple action click in Spotfire.
Now, fantastic. Another example that I quite like, Neil, a little more fun here, is an analysis of basketball scouting. So we got the data from the NBA draft, and we did an analysis. We actually got the draft player data, and we got the current NBA player data, and we did an unsupervised learning analysis where we took the dimensions of that data, things like free throw percentage or block shots or minutes of productivity, and we did an analysis and showed where the current NBA players are on those dimensions using their college data. So the same data that of the people that are in the draft. And then we put together the draft players data on that same multidimensional space. We did some dimension reduction to make it easier to visualize. And then we could map then the current draft players. This player might turn out to be like this player who's already in the NBA, for example. And so then we have that analysis, and we're able to then respond to, if somebody says, I'm interested in this player in the draft or whatever, we basically build a report for that person to go look at the data interactively inside of a Google environment, Google Drive environment, with all the images and stats of the relevant current NBA players versus the draft players of interest, and kind of fill in what a certain team might want to add to their roster. So another example doesn't have to all be gearhead analyses like anomaly detection. But not to minimize anomaly detection, but Neil, as we go through these various industry apps on the y-axis of this chart, we can string together actions from inside of Spotfire that meet all kinds of different usage scenarios, right?
Absolutely. There's anomaly detection, well completions and energy sector, wafer classification, SPC, pricing, customer engagement. And what I really like about this is that's what, those individual apps is what you're seeing on the y-axis, but on the x-axis, you're seeing all the actions that are being taken from those individual applications. So one action from well completions might write into AWS Postgres and then start up MQTT service. All of this, or send an MQTT message. All of this is from a single action in Spotfire. And again, this is not an inclusive list of all the actions that you can take. There are many different actions and over 200 different applications that you can integrate with.
Yeah, so this can be triggered from a marking in Spotfire or a threshold, on a clock, on a trigger, that sort of thing. So very cool. So Neil, let's wrap it up. I know we've got a pretty awesome hackathon this year. We've got a team running this, but maybe you can give us a little bit of background as
Yeah,
to
absolutely. So this hackathon was actually inspired by my wife worked in a low income neighborhood in Houston, and there was a what's considered a food desert. There weren't any grocery stores or healthy food options available. So I got curious into what geoanalytics we could do on the Houston area and just understand where there might be food deserts in just that particular metro area. So that's the context of the hackathon, and it will be on September 21st. You can use Tap Hack on social media to see all of the updates. The top 3 teams are awarded prizes and recognition in the community, and you're going to see more information about the hackathon at the link shown at the bottom of the screen.
fantastic. And I just wanted to close by saying, we're really doubling down on Dr. Spotfire. We're adding resources. So the new team going forward, Danny Topalski, Athir Al-Attar, energy sector expert, Jose Levier Guerreri, who's our JavaScript mods expert, Stu Blair, who's got capabilities across many different industries. So, stay out, follow us on LinkedIn, stay up with us as we go forward. So with that, I want to just wrap it up and thank Neil for another exciting presentation.
Thank you, Michael.